I don't know how it started, I don't know what you did. Now I'm the gal that's chasing you up until I flip my lid. Come here, eager beaver, baby.
Hello and welcome to
Was That an Orgy? Woo!
starring Charlene and Teresa Bod, two sisters that explore the topics of sex, sexuality, gender, and sex positivity. We will also try to answer the question, was that an orgy? Today we have Cliff and Charity from Empowered Pleasure. Yay, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
And thanks for having us.
Yeah. And I'm so excited about what you're going to share today. This is a class that I've done with you before, and I thought it was so amazingly helpful. And I'm excited to be able to bring this to other people. And I guess maybe if you want to start by telling us a little bit about Empowered Pleasure, that would be great.
Empowered Pleasure really exists to spread the gospel of sex positivity, I guess you could say in one sentence. Our point of view is that experiencing pleasure is the most profound way of overcoming suffering in life. That sometimes, yes, you have to deal with suffering on the level of the suffering, but the pleasure itself can so greatly override past suffering that it introduces people to whole new ways of looking at the world.
Yes, and we do lots of super interesting, I think, and fun classes. Sometimes they're educational, sometimes we do guided experiences that sometimes get sexy, and sometimes we just have a really good time and have a great party. And of course, everything shut down for COVID from an in-person standpoint. So we developed a whole bunch of online material, and what you're going to be, I guess, participating in, experiencing today is some of that modification. And we're very excited to be back in person, but with doing lots of careful COVID protocols to make that safe.
And what we do is we combine, my first profession out of college was teaching meditation, actually all around the world for 15 years or so. And then for about the last 25, I've been studying and then teaching Tantra courses. And Tantra actually means weaving or integrating as opposed to sex, which I think most Westerners think it means. Only about 10% of the Kama Sutra actually has anything to do with sex. The rest of it is living life in a very deeply holistic and connected way that really allows you to enjoy far more fully than the disconnected, discombobulated way that most Western cultures are.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I generally think of it in sort of like a sexual or like intimate connection sort of way. So yeah, oh, that's very cool. And so I know that in person sometimes during this class you might have some some physical examples. Are we gonna somehow do that over Zoom?
I don't think
I'll use my little alien here. That's my partner.
Probably we'll stick more to the didactic, speaking educational rather than the tactile. But in the 3somes, 4somes, Moresomes in our it's basically a 6-hour class when we do it in person. The first 3 hours are fully clothed and people are kind of understanding it's the same presentation with a little bit more detail that we'll be giving today. And then we give people kind of examples of what does it mean to be in a threesome where you're following our 3 commandments as opposed to just kind of a random helter-skelter grouping of 3 or 4. And then the second part of it is in person, where if depending upon what level of experience people have and education people have in terms of being sensual or sexual around others, then they can engage fully if they would like to, kind of with our guidance of like, you might want to ask the question like this rather than, hey, you want to fuck? Type of thing.
Which sometimes works too, but
occasionally, but it's more.
Can you give a hand over here? I mean, literally, give a hand. Oh, and it's so nice that you have these documented, because I know that before in my past lives have made many threesome mistakes, maybe. I broke some cardinal rules. And so it's really nice to just kind of have these few things you can go back to and go like, okay, is this really going to be for me? Is this am I set up to win here? Is everyone set up to win, I guess, is a better question.
Well, the way these 3 commandments actually came about was I and Charity between us have probably experienced, I don't know, 6, 7, 800 multi-partner engagements over the years. And when I met Charity, we started codifying them, that like, okay, this has to be the case. If this isn't the case, then it always ends up bad for at least one of the people, because the multi-partner experiences have been anywhere from some of the most sublime, wonderful, profoundly spiritual experiences that I've ever had, to the other end of the spectrum is I really wish that I had a mental delete key that I could just hit over and over and over again and wipe all the experiences out of my brain. Although we wouldn't have come up with those 3 rules if I could have just done that.
That's true.
But, we found the 3 of them seem to be quite complete in the sense of describing, if those 3 are followed, it at least won't be an unpleasant experience.
Well, and that I would toss in there too. The 3rd head of Empowered Pleasure, Mel, who's not able to be here today. The 3 of us live together, so we had plenty of our own experiences, just the 3 of us. But we've had many other luscious experiences with several people, and we do actually debrief afterwards every time, either the night or breakfast. And sometimes we would come and have different experiences, and it was usually because the 3rd commandment was violated.
Second or third.
Yes.
We'll get to that shortly.
Oh, I don't remember which one's the 3rd one. I can't wait to remember.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I know that you have quite a presentation, and I'll probably maybe have some questions during it. And Michael, our producer, is also on. So Michael, if you want to chime in at any point, feel free to ask a question as well. Yeah. So,
okay, well, here we go.
All right.
Anyway, 3 commandments of 3somes, 4somes, and Moresomes. We did actually, before we started doing this, what was it, about 2.5 years ago, we created this particular workshop. We did a survey of the people that belonged to Empowered Pleasure at the time, and we found out that about, so call it 15% had never had a moresome. Another 15% had had 1 to 2 over the course of their lives. Roughly 40% had had 3 to 5, and as you can see, about 30% had 6 or more. So people had a fairly wide range of experience.
So we like to talk about the good, like what are the benefits of doing this? And of course, for myself and many people, just a sense of abundance, all kinds of experiences, complete bliss, compersion. So for anybody who's unfamiliar with that term, that is the experience of feeling excited and delighted by seeing your lover having pleasure with somebody else and not needing to actually be the recipient or participant in that. And having something new, something novel and satisfying fantasies that you probably you can't do with just 2 people, especially maybe if you're in a classic heterosexual experience and somebody's pansexual and they want to experience somebody of another gender or multiple penises in the room. You can't do that with one. So those are some of the amazing parts of it. And then one of my favorites is actually like learning new skills from other people that, we all maybe sometimes want to think that we're fantastic in our skills and we have this great repertoire where sometimes I'll look and watch, wow, I've never done that while I'm giving head before, or just learn and experience something new. And so that's been really enjoyable. And then it can also be extraordinarily deeply connected, and having the energy moving between more than two people, especially when it's really consensual and it's well discussed ahead of time, it can be very profoundly connecting for everybody there. And then sometimes it's just fun to spice things up, and it can certainly do that. So just lots of things. And bad.
On the other hand, the bad resonated with quite a few people, including myself. I mean, I've experienced pretty much all of this list at some point in the past. What didn't go well? Well, someone didn't want to be there. Sometimes, people, particularly if a couple is coming, perhaps one of the couple is much more enthusiastic than the other, and basically twist the arm of this person to use them as a ticket for this person to have this particular experience.
Yeah.
Or I was left out or ignored. Actually, the most prime example in my own experience that comes to mind is one time my then wife and I were going to have a threesome with a good friend of hers. Everyone wanted to be there, but she and this other woman were really excited about each other. They tied me up on a bed and were going to pleasure me, which got me totally excited. Then the two of them got into such a deep dyadic connection, one-on-one connection, that literally 20 minutes later, I'm still lying there tied on the bed, watching them have sex on the couch across the hotel room. And frankly, my feelings were really deeply hurt. Yeah, it was just like, guys, you can't actually wave your hand when you're tied to the bed. So that made it a little trickier as well. I've definitely seen people be in situations where someone wanted to leave, but they didn't want to interrupt. They didn't want to, kind of bring the evening to a close because their partner or their friend or whatever was really enjoying themselves. And that can be really uncomfortable if you don't know how to do that. Or I wanted to stay, but my partner really wanted to leave. And then you have this interpersonal conflict going on. I've seen people get very jealous and triggered, even ones that felt that they, I'm beyond jealousy, but whenever I hear anybody claim that they don't experience jealousy, either they're lying or they're lying to themselves. Yeah. Because jealousy is part of being human. It's just as much a part of us as being happy, as being turned on, as being loving, as being angry. We all have all of those emotions that go through us from time to time. And there's nothing wrong with being jealous, and as long as you know how to handle it properly. Someone else got jealous or triggered. I felt inadequate or left out. I've definitely seen people where either a woman will be comparing herself to other women. I'm not as young and cute, and my breasts aren't quite as perky as hers, or, she's wearing so much sexier lingerie than I am. Or men will be like, oh my God, my belly's a little flabby and my butt's kind of sagging, and my dick isn't as long as this other man's there.
Hard, right?
Oh, yeah. And so, those are very commonly the things that people experience in Moresomes that aren't so much fun. Mm-hmm. So the 3 commandments, I'll cover the first 2, and then Charity will cover the third. The first commandment, it sounds like duh, but it's very frequently violated. The first one is everyone wants to be there. Mm-hmm. This means nobody's having their arm twisted. Nobody is what we call taking one for the team of like, okay, I'll go, you really want to have sex with my, good friend, and I'll go kind of hang out and be really uncomfortable. That person doesn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. The second one is everyone wants everyone else to be there. The most common way that this is violated is that, let's say I'm in a relationship, I'm married or partnered with Ms. X, and I really have the hots for Ms. Y, but Ms. X and I have an agreement that we will only play together, where I really want to have a dyadic experience, a one-on-one experience with Ms. Y. So, and Ms. Y wants to have a dyadic experience with me. So both of us really would prefer that Ms. X not be there.
Right.
Direct violation of rule number 2, of commandment number 2. Ms. X is going to feel our, dislike of her being there, even if we try and pretend that it's not there. And both of us are going to be feeling a little bit resentful for her presence, which is going to be an uncomfortable experience for all parties concerned.
Yeah.
And then the third commandment.
Oh, what I was going to say is like how I've seen that play out sometimes is kind of like the couple will be like, I'll make a deal. So it's like, I'll eat this sausage if you eat that taco. It's kind of like they're kind of doing a trade, and that just doesn't work out. It's like, yeah, logically it should feel all equitable, but it's not. Like, it just doesn't work if you're like, if you really don't want someone there.
Right.
And it's a rough conversation to have. Well, I mean, if a couple has an agreement, we always play together, they're going to be in this situation regularly. But let's say they don't, but maybe, if I'm having a hot date with somebody and Cliff says, would you like to have an MMF? And I'm thinking, I actually want one-on-one time with this other partner. That might be a rough conversation to say, actually, I don't want you there. I want to have this connection. And, being able to have those hard conversations before you all show up and feel awkward it is really critical.
Yeah, so you don't have like code words like like
you do hand signals.
Gestures.
We kind of actually do. We'll get to that, but the third one, everyone remains aware of everyone else there at least most of the time. This one takes a little more explanation, and it's actually the last one that we came up with because of some of those debriefing sessions we had in the morning, where I might hear, there's a couple that pop into my mind I won't describe to protect the innocent, but I would hear, Cliff and Mel say, oh, that was great. I had just had this spectacular time. And I'm like, I was kind of doing social work the whole time.
Oh, no.
I was maybe caretaking somebody because I observed that there was a party that was really actually struggling, but because people weren't necessarily keeping awareness of the room and really engaged, they missed that there was maybe somebody that was really uncomfortable or an iffy consent situation, and so it took us a while to put words to it, but how do we make sure that everyone remains at least mostly aware most of the time? And so, yes, how do we do that? Well, there's a few solutions that we'll talk a little bit more about, but sometimes it involves passing a baton, saying, okay, I'm really wanting to kind of deeply connect here. And we do have hand signals, or we'll verbally say, hey, I've got the floor, enjoy, or you've got the floor, enjoy. So then the question came with that, and we had a lot of dialogue about it. Well, we're all evolved human beings. Shouldn't we just be taking care of ourselves? And I would say that is where I think most people who want to do these kinds of explorations would like to be, and say, I want to have confidence that everybody that shows up in my group sex experience has full capacity to completely take care of themselves. The problem is we all have nervous systems.
Oh, darn those nervous systems.
Yeah. That's the lovely thing, which makes it fun. But it also sometimes, a person may not recognize that they are triggered. They're going to be triggered. And so I feel like part of what we discuss a lot is community care. And even if it's a one-off experience, I want the people who show up to have an amazing time and really leave maybe more whole than they showed up. And so that's part. I don't want to be just taking care of everyone else, but I'm taking care of myself and I'm remaining aware. So then the question is, okay, so if I'm doing that and I'm kind of zooming out to be aware of the engagement, does that prevent me from being present? And so I would say yes and no. So meaning there are ways of being in fully present in an expanded way, and then ways of being fully present in a dyadic way. And I would say for the most part, when people lose awareness of what's happening in the room, it's most often because they've gotten really dyadically connected with one other person. So they get locked into one and then kind of ignore the other parties in the room, forget that they're there. This is can particularly happen in a threesome, but in a larger group. And so I say if you can be fully present expansively, but be certain someone's able to hold the room. And then finally, do I get to let go? I'd say yes, but that has all to do with consent and then about having a conversation up front. And I've had lovely situations where I get to just let go and not be holding awareness. But it needs to be talked about ahead of time.
The next topic, risky reasons to play, because sometimes people don't really think through what the results of their desire, of why they're having this desire to be in a threesome or foursome. If you have a boring or lackluster sex life with a current partner, playing in threesome, foursome, moresome has a high probability of breaking up that relationship, frankly. Not all the time, but very high probability, because all of a sudden, instead of this, one-on-one, you have this fascinating, 2 and 3 and 4 over here. This first relationship is going to suffer, most likely.
Yeah.
If it's a couple that wants to move into multi-partner play, I strongly suggest that relationship be as strong as it possibly can be before you enter into that relationship, because otherwise there's high risk of causing some serious problems. Trying to fix a relationship is another bad reason. I've referred to this before in terms of commandment number 2. If it's the only way that I can have sex with a person I actually want to have sex with, this third wheel has to be there. It is not going to be very pleasant especially for the third wheel, but it'll end up coming back and biting you on the ass as well, because your drive home will be extremely unpleasant.
Oh God, yeah.
I think many of us have had those.
Yeah,
I've definitely had a few of those. Another risky reason to play is what I call faux poly. Faux, the French word for false. I've seen people, like, they're in a relationship, they're really getting kind of bored with this relationship, this dyadic relationship. So they say over breakfast one morning, honey, let's open our relationship. We'll be polyamorous. We'll be some of the cool kids on the block. What they're really doing is they want to go look for their next dyadic relationship without going through a dry sex period. So they're really approaching the entire thing on a false basis. What they really want is another dyadic relationship, another monogamous relationship. But it's like, this seems like it's a good excuse to open up and search while still being able to fuck number one.
I have seen that happen so much. And and I think it's for a couple reasons. And one is like, that's really what people want. And I think the other thing is that poly is pretty complicated. And I think monogamy is sort of the default position for a lot of people. So it's like, you start getting into poly and it just starts getting complicated. And you're like, but I have really great NRE for this person. So why don't I just go ahead and travel down that road?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it can be easier to go in that direction. Then this is a phrase actually, I think you came up with it. Either you and Mel came up with it. Bi compliant.
Yes.
This comes up primarily, the way I've experienced it anyway. There'll be like a man-woman couple, and another woman will be invited in to be a threesome, and women, obviously men and women, can be bisexual, truly, or they can be bi-curious in a very serious way. But I've seen a lot of bi-compliance where the man wants to watch the two women kiss and hug and touch each other's breasts. And the women don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
But they're being compliant because that's this guy's fantasy. And so probably one or actually both of them in that case are taking one for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And that always ends up causing strain because they're feeling a little resentful that they're essentially being pushed into or strongly encouraged, even if they've verbalized, well, okay, you know, we at Empowered Pleasure, like, you know, do you want to do this? And okay is a clear no.
Yep.
You know, or maybe, no, that's a clear no. Yeah.
And can I add a comment about so the bi compliant can be harmful on a number of levels, but if you have this pre-existing couple, it can certainly be harmful for the individuals there. But if they are inviting in a unicorn or let's say a woman or another human being that really is bisexual, that wants that kind of connection, it's really a false pretense.
Yeah.
Because that person is not really interested. And by the way, we can tell.
I know. I was just going to say that too. Like, you can tell when another woman's just like touching you because she kind of feels like she has to. And you're like, this is not making me feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then another bad reason is if you're just horny as hell and it really doesn't matter who's there, you just want to fuck or be fucked. You know,
how often do people admit that? But it really is something that happens where you're like, damn it, I'm horny as hell.
Then take out your vibrator or your masturbation tube or something like that. But you know, going in with that type of attitude to a multi-partner is probably going to end up hurting a lot of people's feelings, or a number of people are going to wake up feeling really yucky the next day.
Yeah, including yourself.
So some behaviors that can possibly result in uncomfortable or traumatizing threesomes. By the way, if you ever came to our live one, we act these out. So you're missing out. Mel and I like to do this. No, but some, let's just say, bad behaviors to avoid, like pestering. So not taking no for an answer. So if I walk in and I see people engaging and I come in and I'm like, hey, can I come? Can I join? Also butting in without asking. Or then if they say no, any kind of follow-up, not taking no immediately, very uncomfortable. New relationship energy, NRE there, is a big culprit for uncomfortable threesomes. So let's say I just started dating a hot new person and I really, really am into them. And I'm actually not really that interested, or, you know, I may not be disinterested, but right now I'm so into this one person that I can't even pay attention to other people. It's very, very obvious and results in significant discomfort. Any taking one for the team is very uncomfortable. So that we have that in quotes. For anybody unfamiliar with that, this is commonly actually used in both swing communities and poly communities when, let's say there are two couples and let's say he number one is really into she number two, but she number one is not really into he number two. That's the most common configuration, but he really wants to do that. So therefore I'm going to taking one for the team. And then finally, being way over interested and concerned in what your partner is doing with another person. So I have directly witnessed this many times where I was interacting with, let's say, a more nervous member of a multi-partner experience, and that he was so anxious. I won't put feeling words in this person's mouth, but wanted to know what his partner was doing with the other person. And so I'm there maybe, sucking his cock, and I see him looking over like this. And then he's worried he doesn't have an erection, and then looking over, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not really, working for me. And so that would be one example. But yeah, any type of situation where, if I'm just very vigilant about what my partner's doing, it's probably going to result in discomfort. And then this says in MAT format, we have a great event called Massage à Trois here, in which people are in threes. that would mean there's one receiver and two givers in the setup. So in a classic threesome, each person gets a turn, right? I get to have total attention of two human beings on me, which I recommend. If, let's say, I'm receiver and the two people who are supposed to be giving to me get way into each other and ignore me.
I've had that happen, and it's super annoying. You're like, you're laying there, it's like they're not really touching you, or their hands are just sort of still, and you look up and they're like kissing over you, and you're like, what the fuck?
Come on, it's even weirder when you're blindfolded too. So yeah, it's like, I don't know what's happening here. So, so these are all just like awkward, uncomfortable kinds of behaviors that we recommend you avoid. And then, then the final one, because again, I have seen this more times I can count. There's so much concern about maintaining an erection that the person expects their partner to be their fluffer.
Oh yeah.
And I know that might, to any listeners who aren't frequently participating in these, it might sound very strange, but I've been to swing clubs where I will see a line of people where most often person with a penis that most often identifies as a male is sitting there, and his partner, most often a female, is just stroking, sucking. And it's clear that can you please get me hard so I can go fuck this other person? Awkward, weird. There are lots of ways to have fun, even if there isn't a hard dick. Just FYI.
Yeah, I would love to hear that conversation happen more often in all the sex positive communities, because I think I know so many people with penises who struggle with the idea that they should have an erection, and it's an overwhelming situation. And I just think, oh, thank God no one can tell if I'm turned on. I mean, unless they're like, reaching down there, but like, because you go through these waves where like you'll be turned on for a while, and then you'll be like overwhelmed, and then you'll be like distracted by the music. It's like if I had something that rose and sunk all the time, it would be like it'd be doing push-ups.
And when the person with a penis gets really anxious about it, those of us who don't want people to feel bad will then be, okay, how do I help, right? Yeah. And so when that person can just be enjoying their experience, whether they have an erection or not, that makes a luscious time. And then just to have that be, it's certainly, if you want to have a cock inside, great, but there's so many other ways. And I agree. I would love to have that just be talked about more. And I read somewhere, I don't know the validity of the research, that in group sex experiences, like something like 70% of people with penises admit that they have a hard time keeping an erection. So 70%. I may be making that up, but I'm pretty sure I read it somewhere.
Moving on to critical first steps, identifying someone to have a moresome with. There's a group called Sex Positive Portland here, Empowered Pleasure, Swing Clubs, Adult Friend Finder. There's a number of different venues and places where, people who might possibly be open to that idea can be found. This is a question that I then ask people who are taking the course. Where have you found? Because sometimes suggestions come up that I'm not familiar with. Be sure that you have your own agreements, whether you're in a partner, if you're a couple, so then between the two of you, or by your agreements with just with yourself, firmly in place before you interact. The agreements would be things like, we will only have PIV sex, penis and vagina sex, using protection if we're having sex outside of our couple, or we won't do this particular act. Some couples will reserve some particular things just for themselves. But be sure that you agree on the agreement, because I've definitely run into things like, well, we agreed that we weren't going to have sex with at this particular party. Well, I didn't have sex. You were down there sucking on her yoni for a half an hour. Well, Bill Clinton says that's not sex.
Right.
No. What does sex mean? My own personal definition of sex is if any part of my body, fingers, tongue, lingam, penis, touches another person's genitals, intentionally, or vice versa, any part of another person's body touches my genitals intentionally, that counts as sex. I mean, there's a reason that oral sex has sex in it, and anal sex has sex in it, despite the hearings back in 1996. Don't change your agreements in the middle of sex brain. Mm-hmm. It's a chemical phenomenon that as you get turned on, particularly, actually, there's been some very good physiological research that especially if you're turned on over a lengthy period of time. So you're at a party, you've been there for an hour and making out and touching and laughing and people are getting sexy. 2 hours into it, your sex hormones in your brain and your entire body are highly elevated, and they start shutting down your frontal lobes of your brain. And that's where you make your executive decisions. That's where you hold your agreements. And all of a sudden, when you came into it, you weren't going to have sex with anybody. You were just going to, all of a sudden, sex starts sounding like the best idea in the world. You just want to dive into this lump, like, every orifice you want to stick your dick in. And,
you're like, holes.
Right. Don't do that. It's much better to leave an event feeling like, gosh, maybe I'd like to try that next time, as opposed to leaving the event or waking up the next morning going, oh shit, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Why did I do that?
Oh, and I think it's good for everyone to have awareness around like how bad they get sex brain, because I know I, for one, am like super prone to it. So I know like, okay, if we have agreements, we have them written down, and I'm going to read them before we go in. And I am going to live and die by these agreements. Like,
yeah. Having them in writing is also a good idea, because sex brain can totally change your memory of what you agreed to.
I swear it does. I swear. Yeah.
What do you mean? I thought we agreed that we could definitely have sex with everybody. Oh, no, it says not have sex with anybody.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of the same.
Well, and as an event host for myself, I will not participate at all until I don't need to be responsible for anything anymore, because once I click into sex brain, I don't come back out of it until I sleep, usually. Yeah. Sometimes when I come, but that doesn't necessarily stop the sex brain for me. So just do it.
Frankly, thankfully, I'm glad it doesn't stop the sex brain.
Right.
Another critical first step is what we call a STARS talk. This comes from Dr. Evelyn Dacker, an MD down in Salem, Oregon, who came up with the acronym that stands for STI status and testing, turn-ons, avoids, relationship status and intentions, and safer sex practices. It's having that in your own mind to be able to very clearly, the safer sex talk, it also is known as, but having that acronym just makes it much easier for you to go through, here's I got tested last, I was positive for HSV1 since I was 5 years old, everything else is negative. My turn-ons, I love doing this, avoids, I don't like this. I'm, in a primary relationship. We love playing with other people. So, I'd be interested in playing with you and exploring and seeing what could be, what can come between the two of us. And then safer, we always use condoms outside of what we call our quarantine. And just it becomes second nature to say that. I highly recommend. You can take Evelyn's class if it's available, or it's easy to create your own STARS talk.
And her TED Talk too. She has a TED Talk online.
Excellent TED Talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Then the other talk that you really need to have before you engage, it will make your engagement far more pleasant, is to do what we call DF&B, desires, fears, and boundaries. And that should include everyone. We always do this whenever we're going to engage with anyone that's either new or even we've been lovers with for a year or two if we haven't seen them recently. Like, okay, what are your desires? And go around the room, one by one. Oh gosh, I would love to be blindfolded and have coconut oil all over my body while, my feet, my back are massaged, whatever it happens to be. My fears, I'm feeling work has been really a huge pressure for me this last week. I feel like I won't be feeling nearly as sexy as I usually like to feel, or I fear that I will be overly sexy for this other particular person.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries, no sharp sticks up my ass.
That's a hard boundary there.
And speaking of hard boundaries, you introduced it in a very timely way, Char. There are hard boundaries, and then there are soft boundaries. A hard boundary is no sharp sticks up my ass.
Yeah.
A soft boundary might be, don't touch my nipples. But if I get turned on enough, I like my nipples being touched.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like that boundary is movable depending upon set and setting, effectively.
And can I briefly give my example? So what I tell people is I have an unusual relationship with my nipples. Sometimes they really, really want to be touched, and sometimes they don't, and I won't know until the moment. So I promise I'll let you know.
That's a really
So
good
how
one.
to get started. So let's say, you've had all your you've had your talks, you're ready, you're excited. How do you actually literally start? And we have a fun little exercise where we purposefully make people awkward and say, okay, everybody touch each other, and watch people being like, okay, how do I, how do we start? Is it just a pile or whatever? So there's a lot of ways. So these are just ideas, and we walk you through it in the workshop. But after, you have your DFMB, we love playing strip poker is one of our examples, and we came up with a game, but there are other games too. This lovely because it extends foreplay, it adds playfulness, laughter, and then also gives you a good sense of chemistry. So if it's a maybe new or not a situation that you've been in with these people before, if it starts to feel like this chemistry isn't what I wanted, it gives you a good out. Like you're done with the game. Like, hey, that was fun. I want to head out.
Yeah.
Right. It's a really easy exit at that. So that would be another way of getting started would be, like we mentioned, massage à trois or massage à quatre, which is basically however many people you have. When each person says their desires, then each person gets a turn to be the center of attention. And then, yes, somebody would be a timekeeper. So this also helps with the being aware of what's happening. It's a lot easier to remain aware of what's happening in the room. When you have this kind of agreement, people get to feel all kinds of hands and body parts all over them. And then there's at least one person paying attention, sometimes many, and a chance to be able to let go at some part.
Yeah.
And then also, so yeah, I guess I covered that. Won't over talk that one. But common problems is one thing a lot of people like to know about. So go.
Something isn't working for me, but I want to stay. What I have done in this particular situation is say, like, it's clear. It's usually, I remember one particular situation, a man with Charity and Mel, and he obviously was really adhered to what I call the one penis policy, which is that he wanted, there was only room for one penis in the room. Not that his was that large.
Everybody stand back.
But and it was clear it was making him really uncomfortable. Yeah. And it was like, okay, how can I? Oh gosh. I really I'm going to go get some wine. Anybody want anything to drink? And that gave me just a comfortable social, reason for walking out of the room and staying out for a while so that he could feel a little bit more comfortable in what he has to do. Or Charity uses the phrase shaking the snow globe of if in a 4 or 5, 6 person type of environment, one person's really uncomfortable and whoever is kind of looking out for the group at that point notices, like, oh, gosh, where are the condoms, Cliff? Even though the condoms were literally like 6 inches from her hand, she knew that. But that was key for me to like, oh, okay, it's time to pay attention, shake the snow globe, rearrange, do something different, engage in some other activity so that everybody gets to smoothly move out of what they're doing into something new, which hopefully will be easier for the other person.
Yeah, and without calling the person out. So if I happen to have noticed that somebody is triggered or having a hard time, then shaking the snow globe would be a way to help without really making the awkward situation where I pause in the middle and say out loud in front of everybody, hey, are you feeling okay?
Yeah.
Which the response will inevitably be, I'm fine.
Yep.
I'm having a great time. And so when we have very deeply connected long-term relationships, we actually have situations where a person will be able to articulate and we will stop and we'll provide support. We had one recently where one of the people there was having a migraine and we all saw he was, tanking a little bit and we're like, hey, what's happening? And of course, then we all stop what we're doing to support. If I notice somebody is in serious sex brain, so meaning maybe they told me what their agreements were or what they wanted to do or didn't, and I see them ramping up past that, ideally, I would have had a conversation with them ahead of time, like, hey, if I see you pushing that edge, how would you like me to help you? Or do you want me to not? Do you, just let you have your own experience and consequences maybe? So ideally ahead of time. But this is another excellent shake the snow globe opportunity. If I see somebody maybe heading down a pathway that they might regret later, it's not my job to stop them. But I've had people say, thank you for doing that. I saw that I was getting out of hand.
Oh, good.
And again, we have this sometimes during desires, fears, and boundaries. Once you're comfortable enough, you might say, hey, if I get out of hand, in the fears, please let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, I've lost connection with my partner and I don't know how to get it back. This, if you're going in with the partner, which obviously this assumes, Charity and I have an agreement that we'll do a look, across the bed or whatever, I basically check in with her eyes and like, I'll either, raise my eyebrows or, thumbs up.
Or you do a kissy face.
Yeah. Or like, something like that. Right. And then, only once or twice can I recall where Charity had to kind of like whack me on the head a few times. Like,
because your face was occupied.
Well, yeah. If you're down in between a woman's legs, it's kind of like, you don't really see somebody raising a thumb over the head. But, it's always useful in that situation. I should have been coming up for air on a more regular basis.
If you didn't have gills, you would, right?
So maybe conversely, like in said situation, I need to check in with my partner for whatever reason. So maybe like I'm feeling tired, I need to go home, or, I just need to reconnect with them. But I don't want to like interrupt and stop the fun or create drama. This is where creating, you mentioned something earlier, Char, about hand signals. We actually kind of have that, or taps, ways of tapping, which is at some point I would like to check in, right? This can also easily be helped too when you have a pumpkin time set in advance. So if at the front, we want to be leaving by X time, then you can at least know that we've all agreed we're heading out at this point. But having hand signals is invaluable. If your hand signals are a way of tapping, to be able to do that without creating drama.
The last two kind of go together in the sense of if it's a 3some or moresome that has totally paired up, occasionally in a 4some, that pairing up is what everybody really wanted to do. But if someone is left, basically swapping. But a lot of times it isn't. We talked about the taking one for the team where, The woman of the second is not terribly attracted to the man of the, I guess we had it the other way around. But anyway, you will have one pair that is really into each other, and another pair where one of them, possibly even both of them, are like, I'd rather. We actually experienced it a little bit at the a recent party where one woman was clearly just having a wonderful time with another couple, actually with 3 or 4 people. She was getting lots and lots and lots of pleasure. And the man of that couple had chosen to spend a fair amount of time, trying to prove how, wonderful and sexy and intelligent and funny he was. And she wasn't buying it. Maybe he is wonderful and sexy and handsome to other people, but, she was clearly not interested, no buying signals at all. And this went on for like an hour, hour and a half during the party. At the end of the party, he was pretty annoyed. Like, really, I didn't get anywhere near as much fun as you got. And it's like, you don't come to a party guaranteed to get
right.
It's up to you to make your own, and it's not up to her to make sure that you have as much fun as she does.
Right.
And he was a little resentful of that initially, and then he sent me a message the next day saying, thank you for that. I really needed to hear that because I've gone to swing clubs and basically used her as my ticket for fun. And the environment that you guys create is not that. It's something where people are there to learn something about themselves. So when any of that type of thing happens, again, shaking the snow globe or moving, doing something different, having a different activity or a different configuration can be extremely helpful. Basically, same thing. I really want to play with both A and B, but A just wants to dyad with me. Then you have to you have to have that conversation at first. That's a violation of the second. And wrapping up, we call it pumpkin time, referring to the Cinderella myth. Where at midnight or whatever it is, the carriage turns back into a pumpkin. Have a set stop time, and that makes it easy to know when it's time to go.
And I want to add one that I know for myself, I tend to get kind of saturated. And so I'll want to take a step back for a while. And that's and it's mostly just self-care where I'll just be like, hey, I'm just going to watch for a minute, or I'm just going to get a drink of water. And it's good to really be aware of how you're feeling and don't ever just endure touch because, I'm part of a group experience and I can't just be the weirdo sitting in the corner watching. It's like, well, hell yeah, you can actually, be the weirdo sitting in the corner watching. It's okay.
Right.
Well, and I would add to that too. Mel, our other partner, is amazing at this. And I've seen many times, and will include in the beginning desires, fears, and boundaries, like, hey folks, sometimes I'm done.
Yeah.
And I will just let you all know I'm done. And it's important to me that you all know that just means I'm done. I don't need somebody to follow me or ask me if I'm okay. That's just me being done. And it was actually a great learning experience for me. And then, I know very, very early in our relationship, you had situations in prior relationships where if your partner left, you were in trouble. And so you would get panicky if I was like, I need to go take a break, is it going to be one of those drives home that's really uncomfortable? And so over time, we built the trust of, nope, sometimes I'm just ready to go. And if I do need something from you, my agreement is I will let you know that. But if I'm ready to go. I think that all of those just require, again, a solid relationship and being able to have regular communication there.
Yeah.
So going into recognizing maybe this is a bad idea. So let's say you're at the club or you're at the party and you're flirting and you're getting ready. How do I know maybe I need to actually do a full, 180 and head out? And one of them is to know your own triggers. So ahead of time, recognize that if I'm in a vulnerable space, or maybe there's a particular individual that's going to be there that I know that I'm uncomfortable with, or I might be having a hard time saying no, I need that. It's my job to be aware of that ahead of time and be willing to call it off, be willing to postpone. And so I know that in some situations where maybe opportunities are rare, that might feel really, really hard. It's really essential because, again, going in and having a negative or even traumatizing experience can last for a really long time, where usually there's another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
If two other very good signals that it's a bad idea, if the others the other in your threesome, foursome, whatever, are hesitant or just won't have a stars talk, won't have a safer sex talk, like, oh, why do I need to do these? Yeah, or they won't do desires, fears, and boundaries. You know, one of the classic examples of this, of not having D, F, and B, isn't usually just, I'm not going to say it. It's usually like, oh, I don't have any boundaries.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's total bullshit. Yeah, my response there is, okay, so it'd be all right if I stick my finger in your ass then. Well, no, of course. Of course it wouldn't be okay for you to stick your
just dry.
Well,
no
okay,
lube.
that's a boundary. You know?
Yeah.
Everyone has boundaries.
Yes.
And so the refusal to discuss those is a warning sign that this person really doesn't know themselves very well, or is extremely reticent to actually express what they want and what they don't want. If the other partners are a couple and they won't share about their past experiences, they may be total newbies, or they may have had major issues that they haven't told you about. There's nothing wrong with being new to coming into, everybody is new, you know, for the first couple of times anyway. But if a person is claiming, oh yeah, we've had lots.
Tell me more.
Yeah. But you know, what clubs have you been to? Or, you know, what parties have you been to? You know, because somebody coming in who is completely new, when I encounter that, which I'm happy to do, but I know that I'm going to be in a mentor role. I'm not going to be a full participant. I simply can't be, because there's a high probability that one or both of them are going to have issues and triggers that are going to come up that demand my attention or my withdrawing from particular behaviors, or not even engaging in those behaviors to begin with. And I'm fine with being a mentor, but I'd like to do that consensually. I'd like to know.
Yes.
I'd like to know that that's what I'm stepping into, as opposed to like, oh, so there's that discussion of, you know, all your times, it was actually bullshit. I wonder what else was bullshit that you told me.
Yeah.
And I have a brief example of that too. When I was relatively new, I mean, I considered myself, I'd maybe had 2 or 3 group experiences and only 2 or 3 experiences with women. And I was at Kink Fest. I went to the hotel room with a couple who claimed that they were highly experienced. And it definitely felt awkward to me. And then about halfway through, you know, she ended up getting up and going into the bathroom and crying. And, you know, and so I found out shortly after that it was their first threesome experience. And it was her first time having any sensual touch with a woman. And I thought, wow, like I'm definitely not experienced enough to do that. And had I known that, I would have probably declined or just would have approached it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
This isn't a solid, you know, like solid no, but it's an indicator that could be problems, is NRE. You know, if I'm in serious NRE with, you know, another person, a third, then I need to be very, very cautious to not completely ignore my partner, because all my chemistry is going to be directing me towards this person, and they're so wonderful and they're perfect, and you know, they're just infinitely charming, and everything that they say is funny. And God, Charity, will you please shut up already? Sorry. Yeah, you don't want to do that because it's a bad idea ultimately.
Mhm.
If you want to have a dyadic relationship with someone, have a dyadic relationship with them.
Yeah.
And maybe after the NRE has died down a little bit, and if this other person is really interested, and if your original partner, if you're in a partnership, is also really interested, great. But again, follow those 3 commandments. That really kind of wraps up our thing. Here's how people can get in touch with us. We have our website. We have a meetup group, which is where all of our various events are. We've done I think we've done about 75 events so far this year. And we have we actually have 4 coming up next weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Tantra and touch and also building community. Like I feel like you do a great job at that as well. With your wine socials, people can get to know each other. And I feel like you provide such a great space that isn't like going to a club. I mean, it's as fun as going to a club, and sometimes way more fun than going to a club. But it's also, it feels a lot safer. It feels more personal. And to me, I've just had some of the best events and experiences at your events. So I highly recommend people to just check you out, try something online or in person. So you have 4 events this weekend?
This coming. But no, 2 weekends from now. Yeah. We only have 2 events this coming weekend, then 4 events the next weekend. And we have
massage à deux. Yeah.
We have a massage à deux, which is basically advanced tantric sex ways of interacting with a partner sensually and sexually. That'll be this coming weekend. Then we did a massage à trois 2 weeks ago. Oh, and then we're having a glow party 2 weekends from now. Basically, I call it a glow party puja, where it'll be 3 people, and 1 person is the canvas, and 2 people are the artists, and then they'll rotate around with black light paint, and we have a bunch of black lights around. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic! Wow.
I'd be happy to paint you, Char.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking I need to get on your site again and see what's going on. Obviously, I've been out at the farm just with my head buried in the sand or something.
Then get yourself buried in some glow paint, because it's going to be
Yeah. And one of your blindfolded sensual dinners, and then I can get covered in whipped cream.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and then if anybody is curious too, we do take COVID very seriously. So there's precautions for these touch events, which can also be a little different than a club right now, where many of them might ask for, a vaccination card. We also do rapid tests at the door. Mm-hmm. So that's just a way so that when you come in, again, nothing's 100%, but you can feel relatively certain that as many precautions as can be taken are. And so we just want people to come in and settle in and know that, we're here to create a space where you can explore, expand, and play to whatever degree you want to.
Yeah. And I like that you do the follow-up emails as well, where you say, it's been so many days and we have not had a reported case. And so that I think makes everyone feel like, okay, yes, we have been taking all the precautions, and everyone really is, being really sincere about staying home the few days before the event and testing and everything like that. So
right.
Really good. Yes. Well, thank you both so much. It's been so fantastic talking to you and seeing the 3 commandments of the 3somes, 4somes, and Moresomes again. I think I needed a refresher course anyway. I've gotten kind of, cocky lately. Like, oh, this is old hat. I'm like, oh shit, I did that one recently. Oh no. Oh my God.
We had a lovely 17-person one recently. So,
Whoa.
Sometime.
Okay.
So it was great.
Goals
was
and
wonderful.
aspirations, huh?
All right.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye,
Take
guys.
care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.